somebody just joined.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you're good now.
Yeah, sure. So, hello, this is the Intro to 3D Printing Utilities workshop. So we're going to be going over stuff that you can't do in your traditional CAD environment, such as like melding your models together and preparing your models for 3D printing. So over here. The tools we're going to cover today are 3D Builder, which is common to Windows computers. So if you have a Windows 10 laptop or computer or whatever, it should just be pre-installed with your OS. There's also an online tool called NetFab, which basically does the same exact thing. It's just you have to go on a website instead of having a program pre-installed on your computer. And if we have some time at the end, we can go over a little bit of ZBrush, which is a paid piece of software, but you can obtain it with alternative means. So the purpose of using 3D Builder is generally or NetFab is generally for 3D model repair. So that's when you have your 3D model and it looks good, but when you put it into your slicer and you try to 3D print it, things go wrong. Generally, this means like there's a triangle that's like outside of like wherever your main model is, or just like some randomly undefined, badly defined thing. Also, if anything is happening in chat, please tell me.
I was just linking the Meshmixer website.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to be working with Meshmixer for a lot of today. So if you don't have it downloaded, just download it right now. The installer is only like 100 megabytes, so you should be able to install it by the time we get to it. So if you just click on the install link right now, you should be able to download it. So Meshmixer, which is the primary tool we'll be using today, is used for model editing. So this is stuff like cutting various parts of your model. Let's say you have a model of your bunny and you want to chop off its ears, so you can chop that off really easily in Meshmixer. You can also apply patterns, and by what patterns are we'll look into later into this workshop. And also a really useful thing of Meshmixer is the ability to blend separate models from different like object formats. So let's say you have like an OBJ model and an STL model. You can import it into Meshmixer, blend them together, make them into a solid object, and then print it without any worries about like invalid things in your model. In Meshmixer, you can also do a little bit of organic modeling, so you can do like basically clay sculpting in the software, but it's a little bit janky considering it's a free software. So it's got like the basics, but not a lot of the good stuff. If you want the good stuff, you go to ZBrush. So first we're going to go to 3D Builder. So if you just hit the start key on your Windows computer, if you don't have a Windows computer, don't worry, you just don't follow along. There's also an online tool that does this exact same thing. You just stuck up 3D Builder, and you can open it up. Actually, all my previous files are the leggy Kirby. So we can just open up a random file over here. Open, load object. I'll pretend that I didn't load up my leggy Kirby earlier today. And just open a model. This is just something that's just nice to know if something happens to go wrong. So you can open up your 3D model. Oh no, something's invalidly defined. Click here to repair. You literally just click on that, and it repairs it for you. 3D Builder is witchcraft. It does exactly what a lot of other softwares try to do, except faster, better, and there's no deformation to your model whatsoever. Not sure how it works, but Microsoft came out with this a few years ago, and it's pretty magical. So then you just hit save. It saves it somewhere into your laptop, generally wherever you found it, with just like a 1 next to it, and then you're done. Cool. Let me know if any of that was unclear. Okay. So that was those slides. Okay. If you can click on the link inside the NetFab, or inside this presentation, the presentation link has been shared inside the workshop chat. On slide 6, there's a link to the NetFab online service. This website basically does exactly what 3D Builder does, except it's online. So you just log in with your Autodesk account, because this is also run by Autodesk. You can log in, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to show you the password. You log in. If you use Fusion 360, like we do in the majority of our workshops and the majority of our projects, you could literally just, log in. Using the same credentials, you'll just upload a 3D model. We can also upload... Where is our leggy Kirby? I am competent at reading things. Okay, let's just open this one. You can just upload it. It does have a STL size limit, so that if your model is too large, NetFab is a free service and will not attempt to repair it for you. I think the limit is something like 100 megabytes, so unless you're doing something insane, NetFab should be able to do it. It's just going to process it, put your file in the queue, do all its fancy stuff, and eventually you'll be given a download link, so you'll be able to hit the download, and you'll just be able to download it from the website. Super easy to use. Literally, you just need a link to the website. There is also a downloadable NetFab, which lets you repair like custom holes. Like if you find that the NetFab website doesn't solve some problem for you, you can download NetFab, the software. But I would say that the majority of your problems can be solved with either Windows 3D Builder or NetFab, so unless you're having like a ton of issues, you shouldn't have to worry about it. Okay. Yeah, so that's just some basic tools. So if you haven't downloaded Meshmixer already, it should be downloaded or installed right now, hopefully. Does anybody not have Meshmixer downloaded or installed right now? Okay, I'm hearing absolutely nothing, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad response. Can someone say literally anything?
Take it as a good
You're
one.
good.
Take it as a good one. Okay, cool. So why would you want to use Meshmixer? So in Meshmixer, you can make patterns like the one on the left. So this is known as a Voronoi patterning. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but nobody ever pronounces anything correctly in the 3D printed community, so it doesn't matter. So you can make really cool shapes out of different shapes, like the bunny over here, or you can merge your bunny with a different kind of 3D object. So in this case, somebody modeled a goose or swan. I'm not really sure what birds are called, but they melded it with a bunny model. And then as you can see over here, the seam isn't quite secure and or smooth. So in the rest of this workshop, we can show you how to smooth that out so it actually looks like they're kind of part of the same model. Yeah, so if you open up Meshmixer, I already have it open, but I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to open it. The basic controls are different from Fusion 360, and they're different from every other 3D software that you've probably ever used, because every 3D printing software uses different controls for some reason. I'm just going to click Import Bunny because it's a interesting organic shape, and you can do a lot of different operations on it. So if you just click the Import Bunny tool, you will have a bunny over here. If you use the right click and hold that, you can rotate around your model. If you hold Alt right click, you can zoom in and out. I think you can also just use a scroll wheel for that if you have a mouse. And then to pan, just use your center mouse button. I would generally recommend not panning around your model because it's very easy to get lost in here. And there is a way to recenter yourself around your model, but it's like some kind of complicated keyboard command, so don't do it. And also, what would be useful is to open the objects browser. So if you go up to View over here, it's a really tiny menu. It's the third thing, like the middle little icon, View, and then Show Objects Browser. Just click that, and then you'll be able to see all the objects inside your scene. So right now we just have one bunny. We can add multiple bunnies in here, and then we'll be able to click on them and make them visible or invisible by hitting this eye over here. So if you just click the eye, the bunny like effectively disappears. Like you can just see like the red outline of it. It's kind of like a ghost. Woo. Click back on it, and it's a normal solid object. If you want to make your bunny look a little different, you can also add a variety of different shaders onto it to make it look like, I don't know, what does that look like? Okay, yeah, sometimes the shaders don't work on organic shapes or shapes that they aren't meant to work on, but if we want to work on a blue bunny, we can work on the blue bunny. I'm going to set it back to the original gray because that's what I did the rest of the slides in. But if you want to change your color, feel free to. It makes literally no difference in your model. It just makes it look cooler. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Cool. So now we're going to try first to start off with the Voronoi patterning. So we're going to try to turn like a normal bunny into this kind of like weirdly triangulated, hexagonalated shape over here. So that means we're going to have to first reduce our model. Any operation you do in any 3D software takes a longer amount of time with the more polygons you have. So what we want to do is reduce the number of polygons. So in order to do that, we're going to hit select in the left sidebar, and then select the whole model. Generally, I would use Control A, or whatever form of like selecting everything is inside of your like OS. I don't really know what it's called on Mac, but like the little thing with like the kind of looks
Command.
like a hashtag. Command A. Yeah. And then over there, then you can hit edit reduce. So I'll just show you over here in the software and make this full screen. So we have our bunny and we hit the select. So then we're going to select the whole bunny, which is Control A, and then we're going to do edit reduce. So right over here, we've immediately reduced the amount of polygons in our bunny by 50%. And the bunny looks like pretty good. I would say that you probably couldn't tell that this wasn't the same bunny. Like if you printed this, it would look exactly the same as the original model. But we're going to try to go for something a lot less high polygon. So you can play around with this by changing the percentage. If you do 0%, it's going to be the original model. And if you go up to come on, 99%, you have this, which is not what you're looking for, I hope. Yeah. So we're just going to inch backwards until we have something recognizable. Oh, look, 96 looks pretty good. If you want to go for a specific percentage value, you can double click into any field and then just change it. So if we went to like 98, you can create this thing. That looks kind of gross. I don't really like that. I think 96 looks better. So over here, so you see the, you're reducing it by a percentage of triangles. If you know that, let's say you're importing your model into a game, then you want to say, I have a maximum number of triangles I can have on my model, because my game engine will not be able to render objects effectively if their triangles are above, let's say, like 20,000 triangles. Then you can use the triangle budget instead of the percentage option for your reduce target, and then just set your maximum number of triangles. So we're just going to use the percentage option right now, but keep that in mind if you are trying to work on something that works with games, or if you're just trying to lower the overall file size of your object. We're also going to use the shape preserving type because it makes sure that our bunny still tries to look like a bunny. If you use the uniform reduction, it kind of just averages everything in a general field and kind of doesn't really give you a good looking result. So shape preserving will try to preserve the shape of your object. So it's going to try to keep all the harsh edges and corners and all that kind of stuff. So let's keep this at 96% and then click accept. Cool. And then we have a mostly reduced looking bunny. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody need help? Okay, cool. We're going to assume that's good then. So now we're going to use the Voronoi patterning. Let's see. Oh, we've already done this slide. Whoops. So now we're going to go into the Voronoi patterning, which is literally a tool in Meshmixer called Make Pattern. So that's just under the Edit menu, Make Pattern, and then you can set your pattern type to dual edges. So I'll show you over here. So if you go to the Edit tool, over here, it's near the bottom, then click Make Pattern. You can see there's a bunch of different options you have. So this is the tiled tubes option. If you click Accept on the tiled tools option, you can create something with a bunch of tubes cut out of it. This isn't what we want, but maybe you do want this for one of your projects somehow. Maybe you want your bunny to be cut with a bunch of holes. Or if you want to, I don't know, model a beehive or something. Maybe this would be useful to you. But I'm just going to Control Z and get back to where I was before. If something vanishes, just click back on the eye option in your object browser and you'll be able to see it. And again, the object browser is in view. And then it would say show objects browser instead of hide objects browser, but same thing. Edit, make pattern. And then we're going to change our pattern type to dual edges. So as you can see, this kind of gives you like a little preview of what the bunny is going to look like. So we have a bunch of tubes basically going around each group of polygons. And that kind of preserves the shape of the bunny while keeping a pretty cool pattern on the outside. I don't really like the size of these tubes. It looks like they're a little bit too thick, a little bit too chunky. So we can reduce the size of our elements down to, I don't know, like 1.2-ish. You can also just type in your amount, but I just prefer to use the scroll wheel because we're doing this for aesthetics. We're not doing this for accuracy. So we could do like this. I haven't found most of these settings to really do that much, so just kind of ignore them. And then for the gradient, this is where you can increase the computation time, but you can also increase the coolness of the appearance. So with like a line gradient, you can have 2 different points, and you can say, I want the tubes to be thicker in one area and thinner in another area. So this one will go from 0.5 of your like diameter of each of these tubes to 2 times your diameter. So if you move these around, you can change the appearance of your bunny so that, let's say, the bottom is thicker than the top. Let's see if you want to do it like this. That looks pretty cool. We can accept this, sure. Note that if you use the line gradient, it does take longer to mesh your bunny, just because it has to compute more things at a time. Also, the Voronoi patterning just takes a very long time in general. So over here, it tries to compute basically new shapes in the shapes of these like kind of weirdly offset hexagons, but then at the same time try to like smooth out these hexagons so they don't just look like tubes. You'll see what I mean like once this finishes computing, but it's gonna look pretty cool. It just takes a lot of computation power, and you just kind of have to sit back here and wait as it tries to decrease the number of triangles. Yeah. Gang. We're just going to wait even more. That takes longer. So this is like a primary reason to reduce the number of triangles. I tried this earlier on a bunny that was like 90% reduced, and it took like 10 times more time to compute our Voronoi patterning. It was very annoying. Okay, so this is what our bunny looks like. As you can see, the little tubes at the bottom are a lot thicker than the tubes at the top. So you want to keep that in mind if you want to create some kind of visual effect. But if you don't, then just don't use a gradient at all. Using gradients will greatly increase your number of your time. And in general, if you're not trying to go for a special appearance, then don't do it. So you can also use a sphere gradient, which goes from the radius outward. I generally don't use this. It takes a really long time to compute because it has to compute in terms of a sphere. So just in general, don't use it. Let's just go back to no gradient, and we can look at our bunny over here. And as you can see, using the no gradient takes like a way shorter amount of time than using the other gradient. Sometimes after you use this tool, it will have the visual of the original bunny under it. If you want to create like a cool effect, you can merge the original bunny and the patterned bunny if you want to give it like a cool like skin, or if you want to create like kind of a leopard effect. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to disappear the old bunny over here. Okay, so this looks pretty cool, right? I hope you guys think it looks cool. It's very unique to 3D printing, this kind of geometry that you could make. You can't really make this in any other kind of like software. So if you want to look a little visual, this is like an extreme of a line gradient that I made earlier. So this is probably from like 0.5 to 3 times the diameter that you're normally setting. And then the sphere gradient just kind of is worse. Oh yeah. So then we can also go over internal Voronoi patterning, which is like kind of what I think of a 3D Voronoi patterning. It's going to use something called a Delaunay dual edge. I don't know, I've never heard this actually said out loud, so I don't know what this is called. But it creates the same lattice structure that you have on the outside on the inside. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, we can't really tell what the inside of this bunny is right now because like the tubes are a little bit too thick. So if we reduce the element dimensions down to like, I'll just set to 1 millimeter. Good enough. And hit accept. It will mesh for us, and then we can have a 3-dimensional view of what's going to be our bunny in three-dimensional Voronoi. I would recommend not doing this for a traditional FDM printer. If you're doing something fancy, like if you work at a lab that happens to have like a resin printer, like that's an SLA or DLP printer that uses laser to solidify a liquid resin, then you can do stuff like this with the 3D Voronoi patterning. But in general, for most FDM printers, this would be like a huge pain to print. So probably just avoid doing that. It does look really cool though, so if you want to show something off, then this is definitely the tool to use because it makes your models look very impressive. Yeah, so we're going to disappear the original and look at this. So over here you can see the internal patterning of our bunny. So this can be used to create really strong shapes without having to use like infill or anything. It also kind of looks like those fancy playgrounds. In general, I'd say this tool is mostly for show, not really for anything practical, but it does look really cool. So we can go back and let's see. Let's just go back to our original bunny. If you still have the other bunny, you can just make it disappear by hitting the little eye, and then we're just not going to use it for now. So you can go back to our original bunny that has like a lower number of polygons. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Or did anybody say anything in the chat?
Nothing so far.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so now we're going on to another tool of Meshmixer, which is overhang analysis. So in Meshmixer, you can also see if your models are going to have any issues with overhangs before you actually start printing it. Meshmixer has this really cool thing called tree supports, which makes supports out of these weird little pole things that kind of try to stick close to your model. This is really good for supporting very small regions of your model that using traditional supports might break your model. Like if you tried to remove supports there, you might accidentally break off like the bunny's ear or something like that. And that would be an enormous pain. In fact, this bunny was actually printed with tree supports. I messed up a little bit over here because I forgot to make the tree supports a little bit farther away from his chest. But as you can see in the ears, I'm not really sure if I'm showing this correctly, but they look pretty good. It doesn't look like there was any support used for them, but there were tree supports over here supporting this really harsh angle. Yeah, so it's really good for like little small regions like a chin or ears for your model. So if you find those parts breaking off frequently when you're removing supports with your model, you should generally try to use those. So here's a picture of after using tree supports on my model. So you can see over here the little base of tree supports and going up and supporting them. So going over to show you how to use them, let's go back to the model. It's just in the analysis tool. So if you hit the analysis tool, it tells you a bunch of things about your mesh. So let's see, we want to look at the overhangs for our model. So we can click the overhangs tool. And then I generally use custom settings, but let's just use the replicator 3mm defaults. I find that this default is a pretty good default to use for most cases. And if this doesn't work for you, you can modify based in these advanced and support generator settings. But this is like a good way to start off your tree supports. So you can click and generate support, and it will generate like a bunch of cool little like tree supports around your bunny. So if you find that these posts are a little too thin, you could increase the post diameter, say to like 5. You also want to set your layer height here, generally so that it can create like optimized little tips so that they don't accidentally fuse inside your model. Meshmixer handles that all for you. You can set out a max angle for the tree supports so they don't fall over. You can set all these fancy settings. In general, what you're really going to be modifying are the tip diameter, post diameter, and layer height. The tip diameter is just the width of the little tips of the tree supports. So if they aren't sticking enough to your model or aren't supporting it enough, you would increase the tip diameter. So let's just bring it back to the stock 0.5 though, because that works pretty well for me. If you're having issues, just increase that. And then there's also a thing called the base diameter. So the base diameter is the base of your little tree supports over here, this little circle. You can increase it if you want. If if it's not like sticking to your model. Sometimes 8mm isn't enough to stick to a bed if it isn't like properly adhering. So if you make this really wide, it's going to be able to support whatever you need. So this is like basically a brim for that part of your print. So we can remove our support and generate new supports. So as you can see, we've increased these settings that unfortunately did not allow us to support the second ear. I think that's because our post diameter was too big. So let's see what happens when we do 4 around. So if you do make around a 4mm post diameter, it'll show up and support this part of the ear as well. So when you use traditional supports, it'll create like a little line patterning on your model, and sometimes they're very hard to remove, or you'll have to like sand it in order to remove it. If you use tree supports, you literally just need to sand like 2 points, or like smooth over 2 points instead of having to smooth over like entire lines or entire regions of your print. Super useful if you can make them print properly. Do not hit convert to solid. I don't know why. But never hit that button. It makes everything go wrong. Just hit done, and then you're done with your model. Yep. So, any questions?
Cool. What breaks when you hit convert to solid?
Like
the whole program, or like?
Yeah, no. Like the program doesn't break. It's like when you export it to a slicer, it like can't slice things properly anymore. I don't know why there is a make solid option, because you can just export this file right now and it shows up as part of the file.
Weird.
So it just, yeah, I really don't know what was breaking for that. Each one of these colors is called technically a face group, which we're not going to go into, but it kind of recognizes them as like different objects. So I think that if you make it make solid, slicers try to do something funky with them, it just breaks everything. So don't do it. Do not click convert to solid. It will make you sad. Your slicer will scream at you, nothing will print properly, and you'll be sad. There's also a tool called stability analysis. It's just another analysis tool that will tell you where your center of mass is, assuming that you're printing it at like relatively uniform levels of infill and shell density and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you go to your analysis tool and then just click stability, it should tell you where your center of mass is. Okay, so it gives you some coordinates. Over here, it also tells you the volume and surface area of your model. So if you're trying to create something that is accurate to like some amount of volume, like if you're trying to create like a container for some kind of liquid, you might want to know what the volume is of your container or of the liquid. So that'd be pretty useful. This could also tell you if your model is likely going to like tip over. And then this little red line just tells you what's adhering to the print bed. So over here, that looks pretty cool. Obviously this bunny is pretty well balanced, but if you had a more intricate figure, like let's say this bunny's ears were like extremely large and hung over, they could be like the center of mass could be over here. That's just that green dot over there. Let's see. Yeah, so that's just like a nice tool to look at to see whether or not your stuff's going to fall over. There's something called the thickness analysis tool. This will just tell you whether or not your parts are too thin, and you can adjust the little tolerance for how thin this needs to be. So you can just go over to analysis and thickness, and it'll point out all the regions in which case it's a little too thin, and you might have some problems with those parts bending too much, or maybe not printing properly, or some other stuff. You can set your minimum thickness over here, so it can show like have different colors highlighted in red for the minimum thickness. But overall, that's pretty much what it looks like. You can also do this thing called bake colors on exit. The stock Meshmixer view doesn't show you these colors, so you have to go to File, then Preferences, and then Mesh Color Mode, set it to Vertex Color. Yeah. So that will just highlight the areas in red that are problem areas. You don't have to do this if you don't find this like an issue. If you don't find like the thickness area is an issue, you can go off to group color or constant color or whatever. Let's just set it keep it with group color. But if you are having issues with thickness, if you keep it at vertex color, then you can know which areas Meshmixer has pointed out as problems to your thickness, and then modify it later. Okay. Wait, I was gonna change that back. Group color. So keeping this at group color is pretty good. So yes, over here, we have our bunny. Next, we're going to go over printing multiple models on your print bed. So we're just going to duplicate our bunny a bunch of times. Okay, there's an ambulance outside. I live next to a hospital. So
I think you're good now.
yeah, okay, cool. I can still hear it, but if you can't hear it anymore, that's great. So we're going to be printing multiples. So the traditional like auto layout thing in your slicer is pretty bad. It'll just try to move your models in your print bed, and then it won't do anything else. It doesn't have some form of like rotation or intelligence, essentially. So we're going to first duplicate our model. So we're going to go to Edit, and then Duplicate. And we're going to duplicate it, let's say like 3 times. And then we're going to modify the layout. I forget what was this inside. Analysis layout. Okay, yeah. So then we have 4 different bunnies all on top of each other. We're obviously not going to print 4 different bunnies on top of each other. But let's say you want to print 4 bunnies into your onto your print bed. You can go to Analysis, and then if you select all of them, so you can select all of them just holding Shift and then clicking all of them. And then you can go to Analysis, and then there's only going to be 3 things over here, but you're going to want to Layout/Packing. And then it'll try to fit all of your bunnies into the smallest amount of surface area possible. You want to make sure this is set to 2D move and rotate, because if you use the 2D move, it's just going to be the normal thing you have in your slicer. Oh, great, they're placed out over here, and there's this bunch of empty space that nobody's using. That's awful. You want to use 2D move and rotate, so that they're going to fit together on the print bed in a smaller amount of surface area. This is more effective, like the more shapes you have. With 4, you're not really going to see that much of a benefit unless you're really, really struggling. I also should note that you can like add your printer into Meshmixer so that you can have your models set up for your print bed already. So I don't think it has Creality. I think most people here use a Creality printer, like an Ender 3. But one of these printers will probably have a print bed that's like of a similar size to your printer. You can also add your own printer in here. But if you change your printer over here, you can like change the size of your print bed by just hitting different ones. So you can see whether or not your model fits in your print bed, and if the arrangement works out. So I don't know what I had this set to before. Let's go use a Lulzbot printer because their print beds are pretty big. Yeah. But you can see whether your models are going to fit on the print bed, and you can orient them in a way that will make them fit on a print bed. Okay. I didn't hit accept on my analysis layout. So we fit this over here. And for packing quality, if you want it to be like even better, you can make it take longer, and then it'll squish them a little bit closer together to take up a little bit less of your print bed. Oh wow, they moved over a whole like 2 degrees. You can also change like the packing origin. That doesn't really do anything. And you can also change whether or not you want them to go in a circle, a square, go from left to right. Just create different shapes, like whether or not you want to move things into different regions of your print bed, or these bunnies to be in a certain shape. Circular works pretty well. If you have a square print bed, you might want to use square so that it fits in a pretty nice square. Just play around with it until things fit a little bit better. So you see now this one looks like the bunnies look like they've been put into a square, and now there's just a triangle shape over here. In general, I would say just import as many objects as you can, select all of them, and then just click the auto thing, and if it doesn't work, you just can't change your settings. So you can just click accept, and then we've created all our bunnies. And if you want to, you can export it to blah blah bunnies or whatever. And And it does that automatically for you. Meshmixer also has a ton of object export formats. So if you want to do, like, I don't even know what some of these formats are. Like, what is an AMF? What is a Collada format? You can save it as whatever you want, and it has everything that you could possibly want in 3D printing. So that's great. Here, does anybody have any questions?
I had a random question from back when you were making the tree structures. Is there a way to like set specific points where you want to put them?
Oh, yeah. So you can actually make your own tree supports in here. So if you go to overhangs and just like, wait, what the? Okay, it's because I'm not using the original. I'm clearly very good at this software. You can create your own tree supports. It's kind of buggy, not gonna lie. But I don't really use this feature at all because I find like the set ones are pretty good. But you can click and drag, and like sometimes this works. I'm not really sure when it works or why it works, to be honest, because green generally means good, and like this works sometimes. I think you have to like be able to attach it to one of the existing ones and not have it like intersect with your model. But but like the stock ones you generate are going to be pretty good. You can also set up an offset, which would be very useful, so that they don't like stick. You see how this like sticks to your model?
Yeah.
That's not very good. So if you change your offset or and contact tolerance, you can make that a little bit offset from your model. Let's see if I set my post diameter smaller. Turning, optimizing. Oh Jesus! Okay, those are small. Yeah. So this is definitely more for like an SLA printer.
Yeah.
So if you want, you can add in additional, So I just created one over here.
Cool.
And you literally just left click and drag. It's pretty buggy, not that great, not gonna lie. To add your own supports, the stock ones are pretty good. So like, why change anything?
But the option's there.
Yeah, the option is there. It's just you're gonna have to fiddle with it.
Yeah,
it's pretty hard to create anything that the software has not already optimized for you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Because it's good. Let's just go back to our original boy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like sidetrack you there. I was just curious.
No, if anybody has a question, I will go into as much depth as I know.
Oh God.
Yeah. So that's over with like printing multiple boys. But let's say we want to fuse two of our bunnies together and to create a two-headed bunny. Let's do it. I'm sure all of you will love me for creating a two-headed bunny, and you'll definitely not hate any of this stuff. So let's first remove the support. So you can just go to Analysis, Overhangs, Remove Support. And let's also just get rid of all these extra bunnies, because like we're just committing bunnycide right over here. Bunnies genocide? Bunnycide? Whatever. We're just going to duplicate it again. We're going to have a second bunny, and then we're going to go to Edit and then Transform. So this is just a basic movement tool. You know, you can move it with the arrows. So cool. And you can rotate it with the little angle thingy-majiggers. So you just move your bunny over here. Over here. Let's see. Let's create it a little bit more monstrous. What an excellent boy. This is going to look beautiful. I'm sure all of you definitely agree with me. You can also modify you can also modify the scale of your bunny. So let's say you want it to be exactly 50 millimeters in the x-axis. You can do that, I guess, if you want to. Not really sure why you would want to, but sure. You can turn on uniform scaling so that it'll scale all the axes at the same time, or you can turn it off. Do whatever you want. So we're just going to accept this. And now we have two bunnies. But these are two models that are on top of each other. They're not one model. So we want to combine them together. So if you hold Shift and then you click on the other object, we can combine them. Do not use any of these Boolean union, difference, or intersection settings. Because of the way that they're overlapping, this will cause more bugs than it will cause good things to happen, essentially. Because there's a lot of math that it needs to do on the borders here, and there's going to be math errors, and things are not going to go well. So we're just going to use the combine tool. The combine tool just adds in the meshes to each other. So that means that there's still triangles from the red bunny inside the gray bunny, and there's still triangles from the gray bunny inside the red bunny. They've just been essentially added together. What we want to do is we want to make it into one coherent mesh. Cool, so we've combined our bunnies, and then we're going to use the make solid tool. So this is another alternate way of repairing your mesh as well if you're having errors with 3D Builder or NetFab. I would generally recommend not using the make solid tool as a repair tool because it's basically creating a copy of your model with its own interpretation of how models work. So like there's different things that are going to be blurred or different things that are going to be emphasized in your mesh that you might not want to happen. But it's a really good tool for merging models together. So we're going to edit and then make solid. So this will make it into a solid, coherent shape without any errors in it, hopefully. So now we have this bunny. And you notice how like over at these edges, it's been smoothed over. So maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's not intentional. Maybe you hate that. We can increase our accuracy. I'm not going to increase it too much because the farther you increase these bars, the longer it takes for the computation to occur, and this is a workshop. So you can also set it to blocky, which will create like something that kind of looks like Minecraft. Fast, accurate, sharp edge preserve. So fast is generally the setting you'll use. Sharp edge preserve is if you have some sharp edges that you really want to keep in your future model. Right now we want to make this like kind of smooth maybe over here. So we're not going to try to keep any of our sharp edges. So we're just going to, and this mesh density increases the number of like polygons per unit area. So there's going to be more polygons defining any area. And this kind of smooth effect is kind of why you might not want to use the make solid tool if you're repairing a mesh. It also creates very large size meshes because there's like maybe like 1,000 triangles or whatever like in this area, and like why would you ever need that many triangles? It's just however many triangles Meshmixer decided to give it. It's basically giving the same amount of triangles per area regardless of the actual content in that area, which might not be what you want. So we can just accept this. Let's say well, that's good enough. Yeah, so this is what our shape looks like right now. And there's like this weird ugly seam over here between the bunnies, and it looks kind of gross. Then we're going to use the sculpt tool. So Meshmixer has an inbuilt sculpt tool, which is really cool. It literally works like as if this was clay. So you can just go to your sculpt tool and then go to brushes, and then you can just literally use whatever you want. Like make whatever you want. I would advise if you're using the move tool to be very careful because you can create like really invalid meshes really easily. Like you see here, I created something with like a black triangle. That means the mesh is invalid in this area and won't print properly. So using some of these tools is a little bit dangerous, I'd say. But if we just want to use like a smooth tool, super easy, you're not going to break anything. So I'm just going to use the shrink smooth tool, and then you can change the size and strength of your brush if you want. But let's just not modify those for now. Let's just use the stock settings. Then we can just use our left click and mouse over it. And look over here. Super smooth. Look. Smooth as a bunny's bottom over here. Look at that. Beautiful. So you can do this for like your whole bunny if you want to do it. You can selectively smooth different parts of your model super easily, and it's pretty great. I would say that Meshmixer's capabilities here tend to break pretty easily. So don't try to do like anything too intense. Stick to something like simple smoothing, simple dragging and drawing. So you can also like, I don't know, draw like a, let's increase the strength and decrease the size over here. You can like draw a happy face if you want to on your model. That's kind of cursed. I don't like this. But you can add like pretty much anything you want to your model in terms of organic shapes using the sculpt tool. So that looks gross. I'm going to get rid of it by smoothing it out over here. So this is just like using like normal clay, except you're telling it what your fingers are going to be doing. So if you're trying to smooth out a clay model, you're using the smooth tool. So if you have a mouse, this is a little bit of a pain. If you have like a drawing tablet, this is really nice to use. But yeah, I do not have a drawing tablet on me right now, so I just have to suffer with a mouse. And you can selectively smooth different parts of your model, and that looks really, really cool. So this is if you're like trying to create like a fancy artistic effect, that's really useful. Yeah. Cool. So by the end of this, you can create a bunch of different results. So now you should be able to make that thing on the left if you just keep using your smooth tool all over everything. So this is like with a lower polygon. You should also be able to make the normal Voronoi patterning and the 3D Voronoi patterning with the tools that I've shown you in this workshop so far. If you want to play around with Meshmixer a little bit more, I highly recommend looking at some of these models and adding different elements of these models to your to just random models you find on Thingiverse. So I really like the Beefy Arms starter kit. So this is the Beefy Arms on a bunny already set for you. So this is an arm model you can add to anything. So you can just download an STL from Thingiverse. If you haven't used Thingiverse before, super useful 3D model service. Everything is free. Just go to the thing files on whatever you want and click download. The search is kind of terrible though, so you have to use Google for searching instead of Thingiverse. Just look up Thingiverse, whatever you're looking for, and then go through those results. So let's see. We want to add. So if you want to import this beefy arms, you click. We would click import and then append to add the model to our scene. So we're going to use these beefy arms. You can open it. You can automatically scale it too. You don't have to click automatically scale. You can edit, transform this, move this around, and do whatever you want. So if you want to make a two-headed bunny partially smoothed, then you totally can. It doesn't look that great, but maybe this is something you want in your future. Maybe this is something you like. And then you combine this again.
I think I'm good.
Are you sure? So you can combine it again, make it solid, accept it, and then look at this beautiful boy. Look at this. Wonderful. This is the best thing I've ever made in my life. Doesn't everybody agree? Doesn't everybody love it?
Yeah, it's really good.
It's amazing.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad you all love it. Bunny with arm. Cool. So this is just an example of like one of the things you can make with Meshmixer. You can make anything you want in terms of like combining models together with Meshmixer. Yeah. If you guys want me to show you like anything else, let me know. There's a bunch of other tools in Meshmixer that you can just explore by hitting the edit menu. Like all of these things are super useful. Like the plane cut, you can cut off different parts of your model and then it remeshes the other half so you don't have to worry about any errors. So if you wanted to cut that in half, I don't know why you would do that. That would be a poor bunny.
I think it's actually pretty useful to like selectively take part of the mesh, then do a plane cut through it so that you can like slice off a part so you can print it separately.
Yeah. That's super useful. There's also you can use the normal mesh mix tool and like add in different shapes to your mesh. So if you wanted to, let's say, add in a tube and just click and drag onto it, and you plane cut before, you can create like a little socket and like key. I don't remember what these are called, but the little tubes you put in between two different 3D printed parts to make them aligned, like little
hole?
pins. What?
Peg holes?
Pegs.
Yeah,
you can make little pegs and holes to make sure your models fit together. So if you like clicked accept here, oh, I think I just added the tube to the bunny. Oops. well, you can move it off the bunny, and then it won't do that. You can add in a bunch of random shapes to your models. You can add a bunny on top of a bunny. You can add a growth. You can do a bunch of really cool things in Meshmixer. Oh, that looks worse. That looks far worse. Okay, we're just gonna get rid of those.
So I thought they couldn't get any worse.
Wait, oh, never mind. I'm keeping it. Perfect.
This tutorial is quickly derailed.
Yeah, this is excellent. I'm gonna take a screenshot of this. I'm saving this. There's also something called separate shells, which lets you so if you have like two 3D models that are stuck in the same object, but they're like how am I supposed to phrase this? They're two objects in the same 3D model that aren't connected with each other. Or they're defined separate from each other. So these are in reality two different objects in the scene that just happen to be in the same 3D file. If you click separate shells, it separates them into separate objects. So I can just move this tube outside, and it's not going to be related to this one. Similarly, the bunny, this bunny growth is also a different model. I just happen to drag it on top, and we can just do edit, transform, and just move this boy along. So this is useful if some people on Thingiverse like upload like everything as one file, like that would fit on a print bed, and like say your print bed is like too small to use it. You can just use the separate shells thing and then export the object separately into your slicer, which is really useful. Yes. Some of these other tools are like don't use like this one, generate complex. It doesn't do anything useful for you. We're just gonna ignore a bunch of these tools because they aren't that useful. But yeah, those are like the tools that I use in Meshmixer on, I'd say, like a regular basis. And everything useful you probably ever have to use is Meshmixer. Obviously, if you like digital sculpting, play around with the sculpting area. You can make really cool meshes here. You can also add polygons as you use your brush. So it also kind of smooths out your model, but it adds polygons in there so you can do more operations. Really cool stuff. Yeah, if you like using the sculpting tool, I would recommend looking at ZBrush. So let me go over here. There's like another slide out on ZBrush. ZBrush is really cool. It lets you do a lot more advanced sculpting things. So like that's adding more fine detail to your models that would not be possible in ZBrush. I was going to do a demo here, but I took too long on this, so we're not going to do a demo. But you can do really cool stuff, like this is a sword from Genshin Impact that I took from Kyle, and I've been working on like smoothing out different parts of it and making it look really cool, keeping other parts sharp. So in ZBrush, you can also like do stuff like dynamically remesh your model to make it more easy to 3D sculpt, and a bunch of other cool stuff that you can't find in other software. So if you want to try out that after using Meshmixer sculpting, so if you like Meshmixer sculpting, try out the ZBrush free trial. And I think it's for 30 days. You can try that out, and if you like it, then acquire ZBrush in whatever way you want to acquire ZBrush. Yeah. I have ZBrush Core because it's like a 3D printing optimized version of ZBrush. It is $150, and if you don't want to spend $150, you can definitely acquire ZBrush Core in another way online. Yeah.
I'll just throw it out there too. Blender is a free software that has a lot of at least the basic features of a ZBrush or similar kind of sculpting program. It's not going to be as good because it's not like designed only for that. But if you want to do some like basic sculpting, that's a free program that has a lot of community support for like tutorials and stuff like that. Whereas ZBrush is a much more kind of like industry specific one where you'd like not as much documentation for it. But definitely better software though.
yeah. It's just expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blender is really good though. It's improved a lot. Okay, so it's time for project hours. So we'll just head over to that kind of stuff. Oh, I'll stop screen sharing.
Thank you,
Anybody
Amanda,
have
for
any
that tutorial.
questions? Yes.
Yeah.
If you are interested in more tutorials on like more organic shapes and stuff like that, I think it's Harlan and Small Ryan or Mark. One of those three people is heading the Blender workshops that we're going to be holding throughout the rest of the quarter. So that's going to be, I think, every 2 weeks from now. So like 2 weeks from now at the same time, same place, all that stuff.
Yeah,
On Blender
we're working
Live.
out the details, but it'll be
They're working out the details.
it'll be announced.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Rebecca, you're here. Hello. So yes, we're going to head into project hours. If you're interested in any of the projects, just stop on by. I had the wearables section, so which is pretty cool. And yeah, hope y'all had a good time.